everyone, welcome back to the latest episode of Growed Up. I am Fernannd'O and I am your host. Today, Growed Up is a show where I like to talk to you about life concepts and I compare them to what we thought of them when we were children versus to what we really experience them as right now that we are adults. But before we jump into it, I would like to encourage you all to please subscribe, like, and share this podcast if you find anything of value here, which I believe you will because you are here again. And I'm very happy that you've come back to be here with me today. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. I've realized, a little bit of a tangent here, that I have a very weird accent, okay? I know this because of the way I struggle to say certain words like imposter, and syndrome. Or is it syndrome? Is it syndrome? Whatever. Consciousness is another one that I struggle with. So I've got a couple of words that I fight with. But either way, that's just how I speak, I guess. I have to make peace with it. But today we will be talking about imposter syndrome. And first, I'm going to dive into the definition of imposter syndrome and the experiences that I've had with this phenomenon as a child and right now that I'm an adult. And then I'm going to talk to you about how visual impairment has fueled this feeling of imposter syndrome. And then I will talk to you about triggers of self-doubt. And number 4 will be how to overcome imposter syndrome. And lastly, we are going to talk about self-care. So let us dive straight into what imposter syndrome is, okay? So I did a little bit of a very lazy search, as I always do. You know me by now, right? I'm not like in your heavy research, gal, and go deep. Nah, basic Google search. And what showed up first, I like this definition because I relate to specific terminology here that I will address. But the definition is from, I think it was like a Harvard, Oxford business something. I actually didn't say, I did very bad. I did not know where I got this from. But I'll link it in the show notes. But it has to do with Harvard. So, imposter syndrome. Actually, let me pull out my mic because I can't see from here. There we go. Imposter syndrome can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy and feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evidence of success. Imposters suffer from chronic self-doubt and a sense of intellectual fraudulence that override any feelings of success or external proof of their competence. So for me, like I said, the terminology that I relate to a lot here is the feelings of inadequacy and the chronic feeling of self-doubt, like chronic self-doubt, right? So why do I personally relate to all of this is because I'm going to tell you a little bit story of young Fernannd'O when she was a young little girl. Okay, growing up in the beautiful slums. Nah, I was not a slum girl. I was a city girl. But in the streets of Mozambique, deep in the heart of Mozambique. I, as a child, was not very good at anything that I did. I was not very strong academically. I was not very good with any sports. Still am not, actually. I was not very good at even like certain games that we played. There's this game we played in Mozambique called Matokozane. I know there's the game here in SA as well, but I just forget what it's called, right? But what you do is basically, you have a group of stones in a circle and you have to throw one stone in the air. As you toss one in the air, you have to use the same hand that you toss the stone in the air, has to drag all these stones out of that circle. You catch the stone, toss it up again, and drag all the stones back with one hand, leaving one stone out. And you have to do this repeatedly until all the stones are done. And I had no good coordination. Like my high end coordination was really bad. So I was not good at that. And many other games that we had that really required very powerful and strong motor skills. And even though I played with the boys, I was a tomboy, I couldn't also keep up with them. Aside strength, but like there's other stuff that the boys would play that was just not for me. I was just not good. And academically, like I said, I was also not very strong. I had serious attention issues. I've not been officially diagnosed with ADHD, but I feel like that is what might have been the problem with me because I was constantly distracted, and also back in the days, like there's a lot of medical advancements that were not even a consideration. And the idea of ADHD was not there. Even now in Mozambique, I would say it's still a little bit of a foreign concept. People are slowly starting to get into the understanding of this condition, right? Because I remember I had a very hard time explaining to people that my son suffers from ADHD, and now I have to explain to doctors and psychologists, what is this? And they didn't really know. But either way, so I did go to therapy, but all I did in therapy was sit there and do puzzles. I don't even know what this lady was doing with myself and the other kids. We were just doing puzzles and reading books and stuff. So I don't know if she was an occupational therapist or what, but I had to go to her. That didn't really change much, I don't think. And then I also participated in a lot of different sports activities. I was a swimmer, not a good one. I didn't get anywhere with that. I was in gymnastics for like a year, very bad at that. At soccer, I was horrible at soccer. I was even the goalkeeper because I was just that bad at kicking and running at the same time, or catching the ball with my foot. I just didn't give basketball a chance, but yeah, I wouldn't have nailed that either. What was the other thing I did? Oh, I did dance. I was all right-ish, but I think as I got older, I got a lot better. But as a child, I was really not good. I was not very well coordinated and so forth. There might be a lot of factors, but that was just my overall sense of achievement as a kid. So I didn't really feel like I deserved anything because I was just like, I suck anyways, right? And everything proved that I suck. So I didn't really have a lot of like thought behind that. But then as I grew older, into my teens, I discovered singing and so forth. And I was told consistently that I was quite good at singing, right? But I had a very close friend of mine always, it's almost as if they made it a point to let me know that I wasn't as good as I thought or as people are saying. And that really messed up my thought around that, because this is a good friend of mine and they're always just poking and really just poking holes at my singing or comparing me to people that I started feeling like were better singers than me and so forth. So I feel like that's where a lot of my insecurity with my my ability to be good at anything really started coming forward, right? And then funny enough, fast forward to like my matric year, I was generally an average kid. After my Stephen Johnson syndrome, I became quite average. So I didn't suck, but I was the most average person you can get. Like I'm a good average, okay? I'm like amazing at being average. And so much so that I became the top achiever in my matric year without a single distinction. I didn't have any 80% results, nothing. Everything was like 70, between like late 50s to mid 70s. That was all my marks, right? And somehow I was the top achiever, myself and a very good friend of mine, another good friend of mine. We shared the top achiever prize. But funny enough, he's an extremely accomplished person. He's very smart, very capable, way above average, right? And he had a few distinctions, but somehow his distinctions, I mean, if he had just worked hard, like got, not even worked harder, if he just got like 1% extra, then he would have gotten the prize all by himself, and well deserved so. But yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, irrelevant to this topic things that happened that affected, I guess, his overall marks. But I was, alongside him, a top achiever. And how do you even reconcile that, right? So that started reinforcing again. People keep saying I'm good. I keep getting rewarded for things that I'm like, but come on. There are way more deserving people out there than myself. How can I, a failure from birth, okay, be deserving of any of this? And to add salt to that wound, okay, in my adult years, right, my varsity, I've graduated, I did my honors and I graduated. And again, I was top achiever. I was the highest marked person in my year. And I was like, what? Right? And again, no distinctions, just fucking basic shit. That was very hard to stomach, so much so that I don't really share this a lot with people, that I was valedictorian and da-da-da-da. I don't put this in my CV easily. I recently put it in my LinkedIn, I think. But it's not something that I'm very comfortable with, because it just, again, I feel like such a fraud with that, right? So I've really had serious issues with that, in terms of who in the hell looks at a person like me, as average as I am, and thinks, that bitch deserves it. Congratulations to her, you know? And I'm like, I don't know. I just, no. So I struggle with that, right? And till now, I do things, I set plans up for myself and I achieve them. And then as soon as I'm getting there, I start to self-sabotage, because I feel like, who the hell do you think you are? You're not even fully deserving of this. And yeah, so I tend to like hold myself back a lot. I tend to self-sabotage a lot, because I feel like I chronically suffer from self-doubt. Probably more than normal, more than I should. I feel like it. I really do. I don't know how many people can relate to this idea, where you're constantly just in this constant panic and feeling like, oh my God, I am just useless, right? And I will tell you that my visual impairment, on its own, my visual impairment on its own, as a factor or as a facet of who I am on my own, didn't really play much into it. I've never felt inadequate based on my visual impairment. A lot of people have imposed that shit on me, but I've never felt like my visual impairment prevents me from achieving certain things. It prevents me from being able to do certain things. Like, I can't drive, and I'm not going to try to say that, oh, with willpower, I will drive. Hey, unless there's self-driving and very safe ways of like technology coming through for me in that way, yeah, maybe you can say drive. But like me getting on the road and saying I'm driving, I cannot do that. So I don't feel inadequate just because of that, right? I don't feel, Jesus. Okay, something is coming to my head. I don't feel inadequate necessarily because I cannot drive. But sometimes I feel inadequate with this thing because it comes in the way of parenting sometimes. I feel like I've spoken about this before. I'm not sure if it was on this podcast or if it is in another one, but I think it's another one. I tend to feel very, very bad for not being able to, for example, get in the car and take my son and say, baby, let's go. Just me and you, let's go on a date. Let's just go do something together. That's when I've recently started to have those feelings of, damn it, I really do wish that there was something I could do. It's not the same. Yeah, we can get an Uber, but it's not the same, right? I feel like there's something to, getting in your own car and taking your child and just going somewhere and being 100% in control of this activity. In order for me to do this, there's too many variables, too many factors that I have to consider before I take a small action. So sometimes I get paralyzed with that, but that doesn't necessarily play into this imposter syndrome thing. It's just a whole other different level or type of, I think that plays more into my parenting abilities, but not as as an achiever. I don't feel like I'm a bad mom because I can't do that. I just feel like I wish I could do more. I don't even know if what I said makes sense, but in my head it makes sense, okay? So with visual impairment, one things that have reinforced though this idea that really I am inadequate or that I'm not deserving of things is the struggle that I and many other people with visual impairment and other disabilities have of being employed. For a lot of people, or for a lot of us, I would say, graduating college or university, whatever you want to call it, and having that first job where you get your first paycheck and you start building your life with your money and your hard work and your time that you've invested into this job starts to materialize in the form of, now you can you can put down a bond for a house, you can put down a bond for a car, or whatever it might be, right? These little freedoms that you start getting, not a lot of people with disabilities get them, those opportunities, because we don't even get hired. No matter how qualified you might be, people always doubt your ability to even do the job. So when you don't get it, it sometimes reinforces that feeling. And whenever you get an opportunity, you start to now really feed into that, like, oh no, this was just like, as before you know it, they're going to figure out that they shouldn't have hired me. I'm really not capable of doing this job, So sometimes I feel like the visual impairment plays into that for me personally. But I see it also with a few of my friends when we share this struggle that we have of employment. Because one thing is this. I know, right? You can start your own business, you can try and do your own thing and stuff, which is fine. And it's not a lie and it's possible. But the reality is that even as able-bodied people, not everybody is built for entrepreneurship and to run their own thing and to start their own thing, right? Some people really thrive in working for someone. That's when they shine. That's when they really can contribute to the best of their ability. And forcing someone like that into a situation where they have to now fend for themselves is very, very taxing. I'm lucky in that I think I do have a little bit of an entrepreneurial bone in me. My dad is an entrepreneur. My mother-in-law is a huge entrepreneur. I know her genes don't really come into, we don't share genes, but just being around, I don't want to say hustlers, but like just people who have ideas, who are executors, it does help me feel more capable and try things out and, put myself in a situation where it's like, let me see if I can do this. And that's because of that. But I know that a lot of people don't have that. And forcing such people into a space where now you have to make your own money, you have to learn sales and all of that stuff, it becomes very, very very draining and very taxing. And I don't think it's fair. I really don't think it's fair. Yes, life is not fair, but it's just worse off, when you force people into self-sufficient. No, when I say self-sufficiency, I'm not saying you have to depend on others, but I'm saying you're forcing people into becoming entrepreneurs or whatever when they're really not good at it, right? Because not everybody's good at this. Let's come on. Even entrepreneurs themselves, some are good. Not everybody's good at this. So that's kind of how with my visual impairment, my imposter syndrome plays in, and with my parenting. And let me see my notes. So also I tend to question my ability to run a household. This comes because many times, especially as a mother, as a lady, in our continent of Africa, where a lot of traditional gender roles are still in place, which is okay. I don't even care much about that. I don't care at all about that. Because at some point somebody has to do something, right? But there's this expectation, right? Or we are raised to care for the household and see certain things and do certain things and clean certain things, whatever. But when you realize that there's a lot of shortfalls in what you are able to do. For example, I would clean my house, and if my mom is visiting and then she comes in and she cleans over my cleaning, I'm like, lady, why? Why did you do that? Because it's clean. And somehow when she cleans, it's cleaner. And it's like, oh shit, so am I not really, sometimes you feel like there's this overconfidence in your abilities, and you start doubting you start doubting these things. You start like, maybe I should have just, not being so overconfident in myself. So, but these are like the little things where I feel like imposter syndrome kind of plays into my life as a person with visual impairment, right? It's mainly, like I said, it's in the workspace, it's in the parenting space, but not so much there, but also in the just running a household for me. But a lot of these factors tend to be external insecurities imposed onto myself. They don't always come from within, There's others that come from within, but not these ones so much. But when they come from outside, the within start to be like, oh, is there any merit to what these people are saying? Are they saying something that you are trying to ignore? And you start going crazy in your head, And they're very specific triggers. For a lot of us who suffer with chronic self-doubt or imposter syndrome. And I've written down here the ones that are triggering to me. Okay. So first is when I start a new project. I am this person that decides, you know what? I am going to do an event. I want to do 1, 2, and 3. And I decide that I'm going to do that thing. And I go hard on it. I'll give you a practical example. Last year, I decided, around this time, actually, I said, I want to do a live podcasting event. And I spoke to a friend of mine and we discussed all our plans that we're going to work together and so forth. And somewhere along the line, she had to fall off because her schedule wasn't allowing her to invest time here. And she didn't want to feel like she's just going in along for the ride. Okay. And in that moment, I had to decide whether or not I will continue on my own or if I would quit and wait until she's available. Excuse me. And I made the brave decision to tackle this idea on my own. And fast forward to October 15th, 2022, I did it. I did our very first live podcast event. We hosted this podcast. We hosted the Untanglement as well as Black Women Business. It was my Women at Work live podcast event, first edition. And I named it first edition so that I would be forced to do a second, third, and so on edition, right? And we did it. It was a success. I loved it. It was amazing. I loved the experience. I was very proud, but I could not for the life of me take credit. I couldn't credit myself. I couldn't say, you know what, girl, good job. You did it. Every time anyone complimented on it to me about how good I did, I would no, but if it wasn't for you, thank you to all my friends. And I would consistently redirect the credit to people outside of myself. Because I couldn't, even in my own head, I couldn't really process that I did this, Yes, I had help. Yes, my friends were 100% there with me and they were crucial in making this thing happen. But the reality is, if I decided, guys, we're not going to do this, it would have just died, right? But I pushed and I did what I needed to do as my role. And I still struggle to understand that I played the most important part in making this event happen. So starting new ideas like that and new projects and completing them, it really triggers that ability to really enjoy my successes, because I always feel like I didn't deserve it. I should, come on, you guys, you know, it triggers that a lot, you know. And I know for a lot of people it's similar, but with starting a new job. You get hired and you're in the job and you're like, ooh, now I have to show why I was hired. And when you start to struggle with certain tasks within your job, then you start to internalize that as, you see, I'm incompetent. Before you know it, they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out that they shouldn't have hired me and I'm going to lose my job. Not considering the fact that, you're learning something new every day and we don't know everything. But anytime we come across an obstacle, and we come across as we don't know something, it triggers that feeling of inadequacy and self-doubt, right? Another thing that I thoroughly, or that will trigger me, is criticism. I had to be very honest with myself about this because, guys, let me say this. I like to be accountable for myself, to take responsibility for the things that I do. I like to say that, you know what, I'm a realist and I'm a grown woman and I'm honest. But God damn it, it's very difficult to say it out loud. I am not good with criticism. It's very painful to say this. Anytime I hear feedback, sometimes I read that as criticism and I have to do a lot of internal gymnastics to process what I just heard, so that what comes out of is not petty or whimpery, that I'm mature in that moment to receive what I'm being told and to respond accordingly, and to accept that, you know what, we are not always on point. Sometimes we need to do some things right, but damn it, it hurts, okay? It hurts for me to be told some criticism. So I've adapted this idea, right, that how dare you criticize me when you don't even do the job that I do? Okay, for example, if I were to go perform and I sing and my singing is bad that day, and somebody who's not a singer will be like, oh girl, today it wasn't it. I'll be like, how dare you? Okay, what do you know about being a singer? You don't know that I had a hard day, that I was exhausted, that I was, how can somebody who will never do the job that I'm doing have the audacity to tell me that I failed at what I know I am good at? Because I do this job, you don't. That has been my defense, not to the person, to my husband. Whenever I get criticism, I vent to him. He knows. He's like, girl, come on. I know what that stems from. But he's supportive enough to be like, yeah, you're right. Although I'm not right. And that feeling really, really, really amps up that feeling of like, you know what? I'm so bad that how could I have even thought that I'm deserving of this opportunity? Even somebody who doesn't do what I do is able to recognize that I'm a fraud, that I'm horrible at what I do. How dare I believe that I deserve this opportunity and that I'm good at it? Like, come on, girl. Get yourself together, So criticism does that for me. And it's one of the reasons why I am not a fan of it, because it triggers that. But I will be honest, I'm working on it. But what I'm working on, I'm not working on liking criticism. No, I'll never like criticism. Don't criticize me. Don't do that. Okay? But I'm working on really sifting the negative and really listening to what the person is saying and really taking into consideration what they're trying to tell me and then really observe my work and compare it to what they're saying. And I'm telling you, many times they are right. Many times they are right. Sometimes it's the approach that people have with me that I don't like. Sometimes it's just you catch me on the bad time of the month. You know, there's that week. I always say women, we always only have one good week. The rest of the 3 weeks in the month are, hey, you never know what you're going to get, you know? So if you don't catch me in that one week, what's this? If you don't catch me in that 1 week, yeah, I might receive this another way, but there's no way for you to know, right? But I know that criticism triggers my imposter syndrome in that sense, right? And the other trigger I have is comparing myself to others. This one actually is not so much me comparing myself to others, but it's when people compare me to others. I don't like it because I've worked I used to really be very good at comparing myself to others. I was like in shit. I was so good at it. I would look at the next person and be like, how come I'm not like that? You know, how come I don't do this? How come I'm not there? That was me. But I've worked very hard in stop comparing in not comparing myself to other people. But and when I used to do that for myself, when I used to compare myself to others, I'm trying to think if that triggered my imposter syndrome. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't even know if I was very aware of this then. But what I do know is when other people come and compare me to someone else, or like, yeah, so, but how come this person has this? Oh, when are you going to have this? Because you see, everybody else has this. That triggers me a lot. Mainly because, like I said, I've worked very hard on not comparing myself to others. And what I've done to achieve this is to curate who I consume on social media. So I had to start with my Instagram. I unfollowed all the moms that look like perfect moms. I unfollowed all the entrepreneurs that look like every day they wake up like this and they go to sleep like this. And somehow they're still mommies, and somehow they're still wives, and somehow they're still business women, but they're like awake and alive and capable every day. I was like, you know what? You're lying to me somewhere. And your child looks so amazing every single time. And like, nah, you know? So I unfollowed every single one of them. All of them I unfollowed. I unfollowed every celebrity that only does lifestyle shit. I unfollowed all of them. So I literally only follow people that don't and that don't trigger that. And anytime I see somebody and I feel like man, I'm so jealous, I unfollow. This is on Instagram. And that has actually helped me to not consume as much Instagram. There was the year where I went on like social media like fast. And when I came back, I don't spend I don't spend any time on Instagram. I deleted my Twitter, but I've never actually used Twitter, so I don't have a Twitter. I deleted my Facebook, and all I have now is LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube, right? And in my life as well, I started to look at the people that trigger me, and I think of really what role do they have in my life, because anyone that I love and value and is a dear friend to me does not trigger those feelings onto me. Even though they might be in a better position financially, they might have more luxurious or lavish things, but as a friend, I don't feel triggered by that. So if I have someone around me that makes me feel a funny way, cut that bitch. I stop I don't at all interact with them because I just feel like they're not good for me. So that is how I've worked at like curating who I consume and how I feel about people, and how I've healed my my thing of comparing myself to people. But when people start to compare me to others, like okay, I'm not going to throw under the bus, but I'll just say like family members sometimes tend to do this, right? A lot of, especially with us Black people, family members like to do this. Sometimes it's your parents, sometimes it's your aunties, especially the grown-ups. It's the grown-ups that like to do this, you know. And when they start to compare you to whoever's child or whoever's son, or your husband to whoever's husband and all of that, that starts to like make me feel like, okay, so am I really not good enough for you? Like, what do you want from me? Right? I'm good. I'm a law abiding citizen. I don't do drugs. I don't kill people. I don't steal. Okay. I'm a good girl. That's what I've been all my life. But apparently it's not enough because I don't make enough money. And then I start thinking, but am I even capable of making that much money? Right? But how can I make that much money? Because I'm an a-hole, not a-hole. I'm not an asshole. I'm not an asshole. I am incapable. Okay. I don't have the ability to do that. So clearly, there's something going on here, right? Because if me being who I am is not good enough for you, and you want me to have money like she does, and I can't make the money that she makes, then what's going to happen? And then I start to toxicate my thoughts, and that's not good. And what's worse about it is that it was brought out by external factors. It wasn't me. It's not me looking at them and feeling like, ah, I like what they have. I want what they have. No, because I do not surround myself with people who make me feel inadequate. My friends don't do that to me. Okay. So, those are like my triggers. Like when I start to think about okay, why am I feeling this way? Right. And also another trigger is when when I have an obstacle, like when I'm trying to learn something and then I hit a brick wall with that task. Geez, that is the worst feeling ever, because that's when I'm like, what did you think? Actually, like, who in this world told you that you're capable of doing this thing? Like, and those are the exact words for the most part that I actually say, like, where were you going, girl? Where were you going trying to do this? Why? Don't do it. It's not for you. It's for the other people who can do it, not you. And it's so bad. It's so bad. But those are essentially my triggers. But I've learned to also recognize these triggers, that, I'm in a situation where this thing is happening and this is happening. And I've had to also somehow start to develop systems to reverse those feelings, because it's not healthy. It's not healthy to beat yourself down like that, right? So one of the first things that I do is I try to reframe the negative thought. Okay, I try to reframe the negative thought. I think, like, for example, right? Okay, you feel like you don't deserve the praise, you don't deserve the comments and the congratulations that you're getting for achieving this. I'll talk about the event again, right? I felt like, whoa, dude, I cannot, it's so cringe, it's so awkward for me to really take all the credit, right? But then what if this were your friend, right? What would you tell them, right? I would tell my friend, congratulations, girl. Wow, I'm so proud of you. You've done it, and I knew you could do it because you had faith in your friend, right? And what are your friends actually telling you? They're telling me exactly that. And then how do I view myself towards myself? Am I my friend or am I my enemy? I can be both, but it's important for me to more often be my own friend, right? And I try to slowly compliment myself, even if it's as a joke, like, girl, you did that shit. You like, yeah, you know what, I did it. You just kind of like slowly try to convince yourself that you actually did this thing, right? And you need to recognize that you're having a negative thought here, so that you can immediately say that, no, but that's not true. Yes, it's true that my friends helped me, but it's also true that I participated. And for the most part, I participated the most, right? And I put my brand behind this, and I put the time behind this, and also, and so forth and so forth. So you know what? Yeah, maybe I didn't do as well as I wanted to, but I did it. Okay. And congratulations to me. Whatever it might be, I know this is not a very concise example, but you kind of like have to do a lot of internal conversation to reframe that negativity. Because if you don't, that is what's going to stay. If you're not able to recognize that you're being negative at that moment, that's what's going to stay. You're not going to enjoy your achievement, right? You're not going to be able to enjoy your achievement. So it's important to do that. And another thing that I do is to focus on the strengths and my strengths and accomplishments, right? I know that I am good at sitting here and having an idea and visualizing it and possibly bringing it to life, right? I know that I'm strong in that. And the fact that I sat here, I visualized an event and I brought it to life, like 70% of what happened is what I envisioned. All right. A lot of it has to do with, things that didn't go right, things that, were out of my hands, which always happens. Right. But 70% of what was here is what happened. And nobody knows what I conceptualized. Only I know what I conceptualized. And when I look at it, I'm like, oh shit, I actually did bring this thing to life the way that I intended it to. And I accomplished a goal. So I had to really sit down and focus on that idea that this is what I wanted to do. And I actually, for a good amount, did it. For a good part of it, I did it. I accomplished and I achieved the thing that I wanted to achieve. I'm good at conceptualizing. I'm good at trying to organize certain things. And the fact that I accomplished that is commendable. So I cannot deny the fact that this was my concept and my accomplishment. So I focus more on that rather than focus on, but I didn't do the food. But I didn't put in the money. But I didn't do these templates. But I didn't do this, right? I focus on, but I conceptualize it and I brought it to life, right? I chose the right people to be a part of this project. And because of my decision to involve the people that I did, this project was a major success. My MC is amazing. And on the day, they showed me flames because it was like we were late and stuff, but they managed the program in a way that put us back on track. I didn't think of that, but I chose the MC, okay? The food distribution was amazing because the person that I put in charge of the food saw that, you know what, here, doing that thing that we had planned initially was not going to work. So I'm going to do it this way. And there was so much food left because of how they managed the food, right? And all these little things, the team that I put together, I put that team together. And because I put an amazing team together, my event was a success. Who did it? I did it. So you see, already even me just vocalizing it and speaking out loud, I start to feel a little bit more confident in my abilities. And because I have something to show, I feel good about it, right? The third thing that I do to manage or to try and counter the what, ne? is to set realistic goals. All right. Set realistic goals. Sometimes we want to, and I feel like a lot of people who suffer from imposter syndrome are like super high achievers. We are super, okay, I'm not like a superstitious person or astrology or whatever, but even the Enneagram thing, I'm not so much into it, but I liked it a little bit. And from what I learned, I could be wrong. Any Enneagrammers out there, correct me if I'm wrong or where I'm wrong. But we deal with the threes, right? It's a whole number system that I don't even know how to explain it to you. But I know that in that number, I fall under the 3 category. And the threes are the high achievers. And we tend to suffer a lot from these feelings of wanting to overperform, to overshow up, and to to overachieve so that people can applaud. Like, look at me, look what I've done, you know? And you want to be entertaining, you want to be good, you want to be precise, you want to be perfect in what you are doing so that people can respect you for your ability. And a lot of the times we dream way up there. You know, we set goals that are like way up there. And I had to personally learn to okay, I have a big vision and recognize that this vision is massive, right? For where I am, it's not going to be very easy to achieve that. It's not impossible, but it's not going to be easy. But if I start small and I build upon that, I start small and I start to experiment and I start to fail where I fail and I learn from those mistakes and move on from them and, you know, improve and improve, right? Before I know it, I will be on the level that I want to be at, right? So start small, start realistically, start with things that you know you can do, and that if you're not doing them, it's just because you didn't do them. Then accountability comes into play. Then you eliminate factors outside of yourself that might influence your outcome. So if you want to do, say, a big as festival, right? Try starting with a small indoor concert, something so small that you can literally organize yourself. That way, because you've done most of the stuff yourself, you outsourced to the bare minimum, right? A lot of what needs to be done will be dependent on you. And that way, you know what you did, okay? And you know what you didn't do. And once you've achieved that goal, once you've closed off on that goal, you'll be able to say that, oh, crap, I did it. And you start building upon that so that when you get to that festival, you know that I've built the skills, I've built the resilience, I've built the strengths in order for me to put together a good team of people around me, competent people that I know are capable of producing the thing that I want to be produced. And you manage that. You know, so start small and build upon that so that you can start to see small victories and start to celebrate small victories as time goes by. So that has been a factor for me. Because also once you do your small thing, then you start to get yourself doubt and can I even do it again and whatever. And then they just have to be like, you know what, let's just go for the second time, do it the same way again, but let's do it, right? But as you go, you'll start to feel the confidence to improve upon certain things and to go slightly bigger on certain aspects of that same project. And you'll see, before you know it, you'll have achieved something massive and there will be no one else to praise but you. All right. And last, this one I actually heard from Jordan Peterson. I really like the guy. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but just this small snippet, and I just meditated upon, or I just thought about it for myself, right? And that is, remember that most people in your position feel the same way that you do, right? So a lot of high achievers, a lot of people who have just started something or who want to start something new, they feel the same way that you do. This is not unique to me. It's not unique to you. It's not unique to anybody who hasn't done anything. I can imagine how Jeff Bezos goes to bed every day feeling like, God damn, I built Amazon. I put the right systems in place for Amazon to be what it is today. Don't you think that man still has the pressure till today to deliver? You know, so I don't think that just because he's there now he doesn't think about this anymore and that he's a millionaire or whatever. No, this is a persistent feeling and it's not unique to you or to me. Anybody who is in this position that we are, of trying something, of starting something, or of having achieved something, feel the way that we do. And for the most part, right, what Jordan Peter said is, for the most part, because the idea is that you feel the sense of fraud, of being an imposter, because you feel like somebody's going to find out that you don't know what you're doing and you're going to be caught out, and I don't know what the consequences would be for that. But that's kind of like the mental dialogue, right? But for the most part, it kind of is that where we have to fake it till we make it, right? You have to I'm looking because the dogs are on my door and I don't want to let them in. It's raining outside and I don't feel like smelling wet dog. And they've been running out in the rain. I don't feel like it. So I'm like, they're knocking, but I'm not going to let them in now. But like I was saying, you feel like in order for you to get hired, you have to show your best self to these people, right? You have to dress the best. You have to wear your best perfume. You have to speak in the most eloquent way possible. You have to present skills intellectually or whatever you might have to do. You got to show, you got to put your best foot forward. So to some extent, yeah, you are faking it, right? And maybe that's why we get this feeling of like, I'm being a fake. Yeah. So what, right? But what are we going to do to counter that? When we get there, we're going to bust our asses, we're going to work, and we're going to produce something that is amazing because we have to now live up to the expectation that we've set for ourselves. And I think for the most part, this feeling of being the imposter is maybe self-imposed because we present as somebody that can produce something. And when we are told to like, okay, cool, do it. Now we have to show up and it starts to get nerve-wracking, right? But I think there's a relief in understanding that you are not alone. This is not unique to you. A lot of people who are like you and who are in your position feel the same way. One very important thing that I feel is very, very much necessary to counter all these feelings and to manage all these feelings is to understand the importance of self-compassion. Look, my son always reminds me, nobody's perfect. We should forget about perfection. It shouldn't even be a word, right? And it's always easier said than done. We always speak about how nobody's perfect. We shouldn't think about being perfect. Do your best and whatnot. But that is true. Perfection is subjective and it's dependent on so many other factors and who likes what and so forth. So there isn't a general agreement on what is perfect, right? I could say, for example, I'm cold. I'm so cold, y'all. I'm cold as shit. Ooh, I bumped my microphone. I'm so cold because it's raining and it's cloudy and it's wet and I hate it. But, because for y'all, I have to keep my fit going. But for some people, this is the perfect temperature. This is the perfect weather. It's the perfect weather. And for me, it's horrible. I hate wet. I hate wet weather. But I'm saying this to show that it is subjective in terms of what is perfect and what's not. What's perfect to me is not perfect to you or the next person whatsoever. So be compassionate. Understand that you do have limitations. I'm not saying your limitation should be the thing that you rely on to not do shit. No, get up and do shit. But there's limitations, right? But you can also override these by working on certain skills that you need. I've had to learn sound stuff. Now I have to learn video editing, but I have to do it, right? I'm short-sighted and so forth, but hey, I have to deal with visuals and just hope for the best, right? But I'm trying to achieve something, so I have to do it, right? But I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to understand that, look, I'm limited up to here, but I'm going to work to overcome that, right? And your energy, we need to sleep well because your energy depletes. I am not team stay up all night and all of that. I don't know how Daddy Jordan Peterson feels about that, but I'm not in the hustle thing. I feel like you got to sleep. You got to wake up refreshed. You got to give yourself time to reflect on your choices. Got to give yourself time to reflect on what you're going to do, how you're going to go about it. is this feasible right now? Because we are all in different backgrounds. We're all from different backgrounds. We are all suffering different circumstances as we speak. So what I want to achieve might not be possible right now, or might not be as easily done right now for me because of the circumstances that I'm under. And it might be easier for the next person to do it. But there's something that might be easier for me to achieve right now that I'm not even considering, that somebody would be looking at me and be like, girl, if I had what you had, I could be doing that right now, right? But we need to be understanding of these factors when dealing with imposter syndrome. You gotta be kind. You gotta be kind to yourself, I think. Because once you understand self-compassion, once you get that, then you will start to be able to soothe yourself, to self-soothe when you find yourself in this corner, like, you know what, then it's like, because sometimes people aren't clapping, okay, because they want to see you succeed. People are clapping because of your downfall, all right? And you cannot always rely on other people to soothe you, to comfort you, to make you feel good. Sometimes you have to self-soothe. There's this parable of the mosquito, I shall tell you, as the closing story of today's episode. This mosquito was recently born. Do mosquitoes hatch from the egg? I don't know. It's a new mosquito, and he's there with his mom, and he says, "Mommy, look, I'm a grown man. Okay, I can do whatever I want. All right, you can't stop me. I am ready to go out into the world." And mommy's like, all right, do your thing. Go out there and conquer the world. And the boy mosquito went out, and he saw all these people just, trying to, applaud for him, and he's just gone, And he came back home, and he says, "Mother, I didn't know it was so good out there. Everywhere I went, somebody's just clapping hands for me. Somebody's applauding my existence." And the mother said, "Son, learn this today. Those people are trying to kill you. Not everybody that is clapping hands is applauding you. Some of the motherfuckers is trying to squash you. Okay? So, don't rely on these people to comfort you. You got to do it yourself sometimes, okay?" And with that said, I would like to end today's episode right here. Okay, I'm very happy that we managed to do this one. It's one that I feel very close and personal with. I hope that you do too, and I would like to encourage you to share your stories with me. You can go over to my email address that is in the show notes below, and you can let me know what you think, how you deal with imposter syndrome. Do you deal with this? You know of somebody who does, and how have you managed this? It's not a condition. I always said, how have you managed this condition? It's not a condition. But how have you, made it through this, But yeah, that's it for today. And as always, my friend, remember to always lead with kindness, because the world is so messed up right now. We don't need another piece of shit to make us feel more uncomfortable and to make things more painful for us. So yeah, remember to share, subscribe, like, and I will see you again next week. Bye.